start building it. So I was like, oh, this is cool. As soon as you slide the bottom into the top, basically, as soon as you compress it, as soon as you collapse it, right, you obtain a 3D geometry. And then I realized that the Kabbalistic text said that there wasn't just one tree, but that there's four, and that they're attached at the crown, or at the root. Well, I assumed that they were giving us only half the code again, so that there would be 8 trees attached at the root. Well, if there is 8 trees attached at the root, and each one are decoded to give a star tetrahedron as we just did, then the result is 64 tetrahedron grid. How do you know you've decoded it right? Well, when you're finished, you can actually plot the 2-dimensional tree right on top of it, and you have all the lines you need with its sephiroths. The sephiroths are these balls on the corner of the tree. The word sephiroth comes from the word sapphire, referring to crystals. And when you plot the sephiroth all around the tree, all around the 64 tetrahedron, since each tree has one sephiroth involved in the middle, each tree only has 9 sephiroths. 9 multiplied by 8, 72. I had come back exactly to the tetragrammaton.
You've got
And
2 other ways that you can do this.
Mm-hmm.
The top 3 are always considered to be separate and above man, and thus to be mapped separately.
Mm-hmm.
The center and the crown, is in its own space, and the one space that's missing that you have filled in with your dark circle is da'at, known as knowledge.
Knowledge, that's right. That point, that's the esoteric sephiroth in the middle. That's right. I have shown this to rabbinic tradition experts, and one of them started crying. It's very significant. What scared me is when I was studying this, it warned over and over in many books that if you try to decode the Kabbalistic tree, most people turn crazy. They lose it. And I figure, well, you know what? I'm already crazy, so I can't go much further, so I should be all right, right? And so I just went at it, and it came out. So I was like in amazement that it was so easy. Now I did do an animation that so here it is again.
In this animation, we see the Kabbalistic trees coming together under the general active contracting pulses, creating the 64 tetrahedrons of the geometry of space, forming the vector equilibrium at its center.
Thank you, Amber. And here's the Kabbalistic tree that was generated during the time that I was writing this up in a little journal I published. This was in England. But note on this little animation that when we look at it slowly, you can see. Can everybody see here how the tree actually compresses and becomes a 3D object? This is the contractive side of the event horizon, you see? And then when you're done, can you see how all the sephiroths intersect all of, it gives you the exact correct geometry, giving you the 64 tetrahedron grid and the vector equilibrium in the middle. That's just fantastic. That's just fantastic. I was just mind blown. And so you can see that in the Bible, that all of the ancient knowledge of the Old Testament of the Bible is describing this technology, is describing this power. A crystal full of eyes, right? A crystal full of eyes, as described by Ezekiel, looks like this. Yeah. The petals of the intersecting field of each tetrahedron generating singularity generates eyes-like structure, and certainly would generate a lot of radiance and a lot of rainbows if it's a mini black hole. And so I was looking at it, and I started to trace back the movements of the ark. And because we're running out of time, I'm not going to go into too many details on that. But the ark seemed to have moved from one place to the other, and every time it would move from one place to the other, the symbol of the star of tetrahedron, the Star of David, would change name. For instance, the ark went to Zion. The star tetrahedron was called the Star of Zion. Then the ark went to Solomon. The star tetrahedron was called the Shield of Solomon. Then the ark went to David, and the star tetrahedron was called the Star of David. So you could actually map the geometry directly to the movements of the ark. So you knew that the geometry was directly related to the ark. And so I started to see more and more evidence of it. And I looked in the Bible further and further, and I saw that they actually brought the ark to the Temple of Solomon, and then they built a huge water container in the back of the Holy of Holies. It was called the Little Sea because it was so big. And they would charge the water with the ark. You see? And so I was very excited. I was like, because then I realized that all of the pyramids in Egypt, including the pyramids in South America and Mexico, had waterways that were diverted to go through it. All the pyramids of Egypt had waterways going from the Nile into the pyramid. So they were charging the water with the ark, and then they would allow the water to be used in the fields, and they would get incredible crops. And that's what eventually started baptism with that water, holy waters, and so on. And incredible crops. Every year at Yom Kippur, the ark would be taken out of the Temple of Solomon and brought to the waters that they would irrigate the fields with for the rest of the year. Imagine a technology that creates a huge amount of coherency in the vacuum state polarization, in the structure of space-time around it. Any material that's around there, and certainly water, because water is so malleable, would take that imprint, would go into high coherence, and start to be able to download much more life force than originally. So I started to, I could see how this whole evolution. So I'm going to jump ahead. I'm going to give you, do you guys all follow this? Yeah. See, this is really like a step